Oh, how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that football. Well, not and I saw you and watched you watch out in the radio. You follow I really think it, and I really think it.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. 2, 1.
Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9 on your radio dial. The Martin Houston Show fan page on Facebook. You can find it at Martin Houston Live on Facebook. Give us a like, give us a share. Also follow at Martin Houston. Remember this is the day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Taking time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. Good morning, Joe. How you doing, sir?
A great day today, Martin. It's a little rainy outside in Tuscaloosa, but got to work safely and excited about the rest of the day. What about you? Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, absolutely. I got to work safely as well. And it is a rainy day. And, of course, sometimes these technology doesn't like rainy days, but we'll see what it does with us today. We got a great show lined up for you. Gonna talk about a little bit of basketball just to highlight the poll question from yesterday. Start a little bit of conversation about football, and we'll talk with both of those topics with DC Capstone Report coming up here in just a few minutes as he joins us in the second quarter. Alabama basketball is still kind of crazy to think that on the week of spring practice that you're actually not struggling, but actually legitimately covering Alabama basketball with spring break just hovering right, as I said, at the end of the week. But it's still a great time for Nate Oates and his team, and congratulations and kudos to those guys. What a great run they've had, and hopefully they'll move into the tournament in a much higher way. Almost 50% of those who responded, Joe, to the poll question felt like Alabama had a legit shot to make it to the Final Four. I thought that was interesting because this time last year, we were just hoping to make it to the tournament. And now we're looking at a year later, talking about potential. That's a tricky game. Do what?
No, go ahead. What
Yeah, it's a little tricky game just because they've only played 17 games, and scouting, and you go back to how good was this team 17 games in, coming out of the offseason and preseason SEC and losing 4 games early and all that. You just don't know, but they have a 6-game win streak going, won the tournament. only playing a total of 9 conference games. So you just don't know how good this team is. But I think that they will take everybody serious. I don't know if they've gotten to that point yet that they don't take anybody serious. And with that said, I think they get past that. And hopefully thoughts on whether or not there be an Alabama-Michigan matchup. Not think that the Michigan Wolverines will make it. He believes that they're the weakest of the 4 teams. So I thought that was an interesting take by Coach Sanderson. I'm sure if you stick around for Inside the Locker Room today, you'll get to talk with him more about that. But let's switch over to a little bit of Alabama football before we get DC on here in just a few minutes. Alabama, Nick Saban. We talk about the transition of what Nick Saban has done, but I don't know if we really have thought about what has happened since 2007 when Alabama came here. Joe, this is probably one of the most impressive changes. When he came here, we know that this team was all about winning championships with defense, and if you had great quarterback play, you had an opportunity to beat Alabama, and that's who you generally got him. Great wide receiver, great quarterback. In 2007, Alabama's offensive average score was 26.9. 26.9. And then 2008, 27.9. Over the last 3, 19 and 20 is 55.7, 47.2, and 48.5. If you take the last 3 seasons, Alabama averages over 20 points higher per game, 3 touchdowns better than what they did when Nick Saban first came here. And you just, I mean, and our defense is not great, but they're not that bad. They've not fallen off that much. So it is a crazy to think that Alabama football, Nick Saban has made that type of transition. And I can remember, Joe, that we used to always ask the question, well, who's going to be the players you want to watch? And it was the linebackers, and it was the cornerbacks, and it still is to a certain degree. But with that type of offensive production, once again, over 48 points a game last year, clearly one of the most prolific offenses ever. So who you watching this spring, Joe? Who you shadowing if you could go out there and watch this spring?
If we could watch this spring, I'm probably going to shadow Drew Sanders to see if he's going to take a step forward for the next year. I'm probably going to shadow Jordan Battle to see if he's going to take a leadership, like take the bull by the horns and grab that secondary. And honestly, more of a consistent player on this Alabama defense as well.
So you're a defensive guy. You're still looking at the defense. You're still watching them.
Yeah, work about the offense. I think the offense. I mean, look who they recruited over the course of time. You're gonna whoever plays quarterback, which is probably gonna be Bryce Young. I'll go ahead and put that up, my eggs in that basket. They'll be just fine. Look at the running back room. Oh my gosh! If we can't play quarterback, whoever's playing quarterback can just turn around and hand it off. I mean. the talent is loaded. The offensive line is loaded. It's really just going to be up to Bill O'Brien to see if he can communicate with the younger kids, which he's done before, and I think that he'll be able to, and we'll be able to. It's really Nick Saban's offense with a little Bill O'Brien twist on it. That's kind of how all the offensive coordinators have been. So I'm not worried about the offense. I just want to see the defense continue to take steps forward.
That interesting question there, because the offense is losing so much production. Three of the top five players technically in the country, if you go by the offensive finish in the Heisman race, with Smith, Jones, and Najee being top five, in terms of Heisman voting. And yet, to my point, Joe, that's my point, is we have averaged 48 points a game, and we just lost those three players, plus we lost Waddle, plus we're losing our center, plus we're losing our center and left tackle, the two most important offensive linemen of the five in terms of roles and responsibilities and protection scheme. Yet we're wanting to see what's going to happen on the defensive side of the ball. That shows you just how much of a change Nick Saban has made as a coach. I mean, that is, that is absolutely amazing to lose that type of talent. And you feel right now, you want to watch it, but you want to watch it from the standpoint to see how they're going to do. You're not as worried about it. You feel, as you said, you feel confident if the chemistry can work together, and Coach Maroney and Bill O'Brien can bring their NFL experience and work that offensive line together. Because I think it is important. But I know that Bryce Young seems to be the guy that everyone thinks is going to walk away as a starter. But this is going to be an interesting battle. I'm not going to write Tyson off just yet because I think he brings a lot to the table in terms of size and athletic ability. And will his time has he spent his time, Joe, in the quarterback room the same way Mac Jones did? Has he been a guy who realized I made in the game?
Room, learning and growing behind quarterbacks. I'm just not quite sold that he's going to be able to get that he's going to be able to see the field, because I think that Bryce Young and maybe Jalen Milrow and now this Ty Simpson kid who's committed.
Coming up next. And we'll get to DC Capstone Report right here on the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9. Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9. Let's keep things going. 205-342-9904. You can join the conversation. We have DC Capstone Report joining us this morning. We got Pat on hold, and we'd like to add you to the conversation. You can add us or join us via chat, or you can join us on the Taco Casa hotline. Taco Casa, quality, taste, value under the biggest cactus in town. 6 locations in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama to better serve you. One off of Lakeshore Drive up in Birmingham. Taco Casa, quality, taste, value under the biggest cactus in town. Good morning, DC. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Martin. How are you this morning?
Doing well. Had a little football conversation going on before you got on this morning, and we'll get back to that. But we want to talk about this Alabama basketball team and what Nate Oates has done in year 2. Last week we were having a conversation around whether or not Alabama basketball under Nate Oates in year 2 was equal to, better than, or less than Nick Saban's second season. This time last week in week 2, almost over 40% felt like that year 2 under Nate Oates was not as good as year 2 under Saban. You think that opinion has changed now that Alabama has won a SEC title, regular season, and tournament championship?
Well, it should have. I think you and I were of the opinion that it was greater, and after that, when they run the table in the tournament and they won the regular season championship, they run the table in the tournament. The only 2 losses on their record are in the SEC was a close loss at Missouri, and then that debacle at Arkansas, where they had to play the referees as well. And when you look at the whole body of work that they've done this year, once they made that decision to buy into the program, and they had that little meeting that, hey, they're going to buy into the program, they've done a great job. And Nate Oates, in that moment, his coaching ability had to shine through. But you go back to more than that, Martin. Look at his being able to get the players to stick around this first year, and then to get them to buy in this second year. And once they bought in and saw what they could do, it seems like they've made the turn, and that's definitely his coaching ability. So I show it as just a fantastic coaching job this year. I said early on it's been the best coaching job since when Sanderson was coach, and I stick to that opinion.
Kamar Wheaton, who I think is speed extraordinary, and no matter how good these other running backs are, you can't coach a 10-2 100-yard, 100-meter, 10-2 and 100 meters and 20.1 in 200 meters. That means he got faster the second 100 meters. What do you think?
Well, I think he's a phenomenal talent, but I think we got a lot of good talent in the running back room, and I agree with you on that. Love to see what he can do when he gets out there on the field, and whether they go 1-2s or they mix them up. I don't think it's making much difference. And when you're playing against Alabama's twos, you're playing about most everybody else's one. So I think in this particular instance in the A-Day game, I'm looking to not only see Kamar Wheaton, but I want to see Keelan Robinson. I've taken off a year. Looks like he's really done a good job health-wise. What's it done for his speed, working with these strength and conditioning coaches to get his speed up? I think Keelan Robinson might be somebody that we're looking at later down the road.
Yes. I'm really excited about the cornerback that we brought in from two ranks, and I think he's going to be the second corner. Gosh, Dave, that's the last question. I have to listen.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talent in the defensive backfield, and Pat, you're right. I think you're going to have a lot of competition at that second corner too. It's going to be out there. We've got some young freshmen coming in. You got the junior college transfer that has a chance to contribute this year if he stays healthy. And so I'm looking for a lot of great competition during spring at the cornerback position.
Hey, thank y'all fellas. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Pat. There's a lot of excitement around this particular football program, but there's a lot of questions. Questions aren't the problem, DC. It's whether or not you have and
Jalen Waddle and your left tackle and your center, big cogs in the offensive side of the ball. But Alabama has seen in the last several years of Nick Saban be able to plug and play on the offense, and a really good plan for that. So it's going to be interesting to see. Is Bryce Young going to be the guy? Is Paul Tyson going to challenge him? Does Jalen Milroe come on as a freshman, phenomenal, and just outdo them both? I mean, that's questions. Who's going to be step up in the running back room? Is it going to be Brian Robinson's year? Will we see somebody like a Keelan Robinson or Kamar Wheaton jump up with Jace McClellan or Rodell Williams? Will they be the ones that go such big room there? Then line to look at on offense, but much more.
Is do you have the answers? Coming back on the other side, we'll talk about what we think some of those answers may be by positions. We'll also revisit back with a little bit more conversation around basketball. You're listening to the Martin Houston Show with DC Capstone Report.
The Empowerment Center for Leadership and Mentoring can help you with that. We have our pep talks, which is a 1 to 1.5 hour lunch and learn.
Hey, can you hear me, Joe?
Customized to meet your needs, or we have some topics that we present that we know can help your organization. And if you're looking for one-on-one mentoring and coaching, we can also assist you with that. Visit peptalks35.com. That's peptalks35.com, or send an email to martin@martinhouston.org. That's the Empowerment Center for Leadership and Mentoring.
Well, all right, Martin, I got Tom's question, so I'm going to make you hot and I'll ask it to DC.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9 on the radio dial, Martin Houston Show fan page on Facebook. Excuse us for the technical difficulty. Sometimes tech don't like rain, rain don't like tech. But, hey, we're still live and local, still talking with DC Capstone Report right here on your home for Alabama sports, 205-342-9904. You can be a part of the conversation. Ask your question and we'll get it on the air. You can also chat with us at Martin Houston 35 or the Martin Houston live fan page. All right, DC, Tom had called in and he had a question regarding basketball. So let's get that question in and then we'll continue the conversation.
Tom called and was wanting to know your observations on the SEC tournament in these terms. He said that in his estimation that Alabama was able to turn it up an even higher level, go to another level of intensity on both ends of the floor. And he said, to me, that bodes very well for the NCAA tournament. Do you agree with his assessment that Alabama was able to rise up their level of play to another level? And what does that mean for the NCAA tournament coming up this weekend on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Tom is spot on. Great assessment there. I thought that the best thing that could happen to Alabama in the SEC tournament to kind of position them for a great run in the NCAA was to have some tough games that they won. And I thought that the game against Tennessee and the game against LSU, Alabama was pushed really to the limit and got behind, but played with so much passion and so much drive, was able to still run their offense. But the main thing, playing such tremendous defense with such enthusiasm that it really showed in those games. And I think that's where you're going to have some games like that in the NCAA tournament you got to push through. And I think they've showed that they can come back and win a game from a big deficit, like 15 points down, and always play within themselves. I think that, again, is another sign of them buying into the NATO's program. They play great defense, 10% of them offense. That's how they got back in that Tennessee game. And that's how they stayed ahead of LSU, playing defense. It came down to a play at the end when LSU could have won the game, and it was defense to stop that. So I think he's exactly right. I think that really catapults us into a great run in the NCAA tournament.
I agree with that, DC. I think the SEC tournament is exactly what the doctor ordered for this basketball team, this basketball program. They got the double bye. Game one, it looked like a team whose legs were rested. Games 2 and 3 were hard-fought battles, kind of the types of games that are things you would experience in a tournament where a team is playing really well. Tennessee had Alabama figured out. They were cutting off the passing lanes. They were tipping balls. They knew what Alabama wanted to do from an offensive side. Got out to a 15-point lead, but Alabama was able to methodically walk them down. And then once they got back into the game, their defense, which was good the entire time, took over. And they were able to get that. And then that LSU game, that was about as well as LSU could play. All three of their big players had big games, and Trendon had double his career. I mean, you think about that. You take a team's best player, and he doubles his season total pretty much, averaging just over 16, sitting at 30 points with the ball in his hand, having the best game possibly of his career, and you still get away with a win. That bodes well for you going into the NCAA tournament. With that said, DC, how far do you see this team going in terms of the NCAA tournament? First, second round? Do you think they're a lock for Sweet 16, Elite 8, or can this team get to the Final Four and maybe even be playing on the last day of college basketball?
I think early on I said, hey, if you make the tournament great, and then continue this year, I thought, hey, I think it's pretty good. They can go on into the second round or so. And then as we began to watch the last part of the season, I thought this could be a Sweet 16 team. But after watching them play and seeing their game transition into the level that it was in the tournament, I'd say that this thing can go to the Elite 8, and I'm predicting that they'll be playing in the Final Four. This will be the first team to play in the Final Four. I really believe they can do that. I think we got a good situation because I believe Michigan is the weakest team in the top seed. I thought Alabama should be a top seed instead of Michigan, and I think that you'll see Alabama playing in the Final Four and then possibly playing on the last day.
Did Alabama get a bad draw? How is the number one overall 2 seed? How are they positioned to play Gonzaga in the Final Four versus the other way around? How did they end up in that bracket?
Well, I mean, I think it's a draw you get. I'm not sure exactly what the thing about the NCAA committee and how they put them in different places, but I really believe that this team is positioned to play well. I mean, I know Gonzaga is a great team, but I really believe this Alabama team, the way it pushes the ball, it matches up well against the Gonzaga team. I worry about us playing Texas. I worry about us playing, Ohio State, teams like that. They match up well against Gonzaga.
And that's the beauty of basketball. Matchups is more important than records and what necessarily best teams. And I agree with you. I do think that Alabama, the Sims kid for Texas, I didn't watch Texas a lot, but he could be a nightmare for Alabama, as Texas is the number 3 seed, and possibly if we get past Iona and Maryland and or UConn, it'll probably be Texas sitting there waiting on us potentially in that round of the Sweet 16. So we'll see what happens there. But in terms of what's happening, let's go back over. Let me give it to you this way before I move on. Do you have anything else you want to add about this basketball team as they prepare for this weekend's opening round?
Well, I think it's important. We joked a little bit or laughed a little bit a while ago about talking about a bus driver, but I think the logistics of this tournament are going to be important for Alabama, and I think Alabama has the regiment. I heard yesterday, I think six referees have been disqualified for testing positive for COVID or contact tracing for COVID. So I know they're going to be very strict on this to keep this tournament alive this year. I think the NCAA took a big hit last year financially, so they're going to do everything they can to keep it alive. So I think maintaining a strict regiment for this team is going to be good, and I think you're going to see Alabama go through with no problem. But there might be some down the road, some very big teams have some issues with this if they can't exercise personal responsibility, and we might see that be a story down the road in the NCAA. But I think Alabama does well, and I'm glad that we have that type of procedures in place, protocols in place that we've learned with football and beating over to basketball. And I'll say this one thing: there's nobody at Alabama that is more excited about Alabama basketball doing good this time of year than Nick Saban, because
I think he's really enjoying going into his spring practice with Alabama basketball being the top of the town.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm sure Nick Saban's enjoying that. It also helps with excitement around the program when he's recruiting these kids, and that's what they have to offer as part of the cool down getaway time is the fact that you're going to get to watch some exciting basketball. Winning begets winning, and when you win at the level that Nick Saban wins at, and you get a basketball program that comes along that can win at that level, it only helps. What's your score prediction? And will Alabama win this one on high shooting or great defense?
I think it's going to be both. They're going to play great defense. They're going to win some games from hot shooting. I think they're going to come out and play really well. I think we go above 80 points in this game. So I'm looking at Alabama win this in like 85 to 70.
Okay. Wow. Big time win. That'd be exactly what the doctor ordered coming off of that close 80 to 79 win over LSU to come out and have the three ball falling while also playing great defense going into round two. So I haven't given my prediction yet for the game, but I'll do that later on in the week. Coming back on the other side, DC, we're going to get your thoughts in regards to the basketball game. I mean, the football spring practice kicking off this Friday. Alabama ready to get things rolling, ready to start the journey to defend their latest national championship. You listen to Tide 100.9, and we're able to do this each and every day because of the great folks like Overflow Express Wash. Overflow Express Wash, you can go check them out. Andy Phillips and his team do a great job of providing you a great environment to keep your car clean inside and out. That's overflowexpresswash.com.
Tide 100.9 traffic. From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, multiple accidents to report this.
So call Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing at 205-331-6823 or visit them online at Tuscaloosa Custom Curbing, LLC.
TNT's stimulus sale is going full steam ahead with offers like this. Brand new 2021 Versa sedan starting at only $14,990. Wow! New 2021 Nissan Kicks starting at $19,990. Now that's real savings. Okay, the Big Daddy SUV, the Nissan Armada, discounted up to $9,000. And remember, Townsend Nissan wants your trade-in today. Visit them at townsendnissan.com or call 205-561-3993. This is Renee. Happy to be here. She's not some influencer. She's more of a groundbreaker, turning her 4-acre lot into a little slice of heaven behind the wheel of a John Deere 1 Series tractor. Renee runs with us because the most important job is the next one. That's all I got. Nothing runs like a Deere. Get a 1 Series tractor for just $99 per month at your John Deere dealer today. For additional cost information, please call toll-free 855-633-2315. Fear, guilt, indecision. These raw feelings are common when users witness an opioid overdose. As a bystander, fear and indecision may race through your mind, but it's vital that you call for help. Alabama's Good Samaritan Law protects those who act in good faith in situations like an opioid overdose. Find out more about Alabama's Good Samaritan Law at VitalAlabama.com. The sound of Bama Sports. Your show, your team, the Martin Houston Show, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
We have DC Capstone Report joining us this morning as he does each and every Tuesday morning. He's able to do that because of the great folks at RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. DC, tell our listeners real quick where they can find you, sir.
Well, you can find us at DCCapstoneReport.com, or you can find us at DC Capstone Report Facebook page. You can like us there on Facebook, and you can get all our videos and content. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at DavidCott50. DavidCott50. We'll have a podcast up next week reviewing the first spring practice that takes place on the 19th of this week.
All right. What's your biggest question going into the spring, DC?
How do you replace the offensive production that we lost from last year? I know we did it the year before, but how are we going to do it this year? Do we have the same types of people lined up behind those that we're missing? I think that's my biggest question.
All right. So where do you start to answer that question? Do you start with the skill position or the offensive line?
I think you have to look at the offensive line and how is it going to come. I think it takes the longest to gel on the offensive line. The good thing with guys, we got Chris Owens coming back, and he can kind of fill in at any position along the offensive line. So I think that's going to be a big point. If Darren Dallencourt can come up and really take over the center position, then I think he slides out and plays the left tackle spot. He's got other places that he can fill in as well. If he has to play center, then you're looking at how to fill that left tackle spot. So I think we got really good people that played behind the good offensive linemen. So I really believe we can do that, but I think it's the toughest position as a cohesive unit to gel. And I think how fast we gel on the offensive line determines how good our offense is going to be. Mac Jones is phenomenal, and our wide receivers are phenomenal last year. But if he didn't have time to throw the ball, we would never get the ball out to the playmakers. So I think the offensive line is the place guys to get started. Yeah, 19 sacks in the entire year, and I don't think we gave up any up the middle for the most part in terms of sacks, maybe a handful. Do you not think that Evan Neal shifts out to left tackle from right tackle? I don't know for sure. I think Evan Neal is good enough to do that, but depends on who your quarterback's going to be. If it's going to be Bryce Young, and I think it all depends on if Bryce Young's the guy, he's a little more mobile. If Paul Tyson's the guy, he's a little more pocket passing. So depends on where you want to put your best lineman at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys going to be competing for that. A couple guys that may not be getting love because they're not the Brockemeyer, or they're not Latham, kids not named that, but guys to look for. I think Darren Dalcourt, it'll surprise me if he's not at center this year. And then you have, of course, you had mentioned Chris Owens. I just like the way Darren Dalcourt plays the game. I'm hoping to see him out there. But a guy that I like, DC, that you're probably not going to hear a lot about, but he'll remind you of some of those guys that played back in my days, and just, to me, a lot like Barrett Jones is not necessarily the most talented guy, but just a smart football player, and everybody loves it. I think Pierce Quick may make some noise this spring, and Tommy Brown got in at certain points as well. And then I guess the only thing you can call him is Big Baby. Damian George Jr., 6'6", he may be taller than that, 345 pounds. He was only 17 last year in college, and now he's a sophomore. In being in a weight program, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to get into that rotation and fight. And then, of course, we just signed the most talented offensive line class potentially ever. Now that we've hit the – go ahead.
And the thing you're talking about there, Martin, like, to think about all those names you just mentioned, and you didn't name Emil Akior or Mari Knight or Kendall Randolph or Cohen.
Right.
The freshmen that we've signed.
Right.
We have the talent there. My point is getting the starters that are going to gel together and play the best together. That is going to be difficult out of that group. All of them are great players, but yeah, I mean you're going to have some selection there. So does Doug Marone come over and do a great job as Kyle Flood did with the offensive line last year? If he does that, if you make that transition and you get that offensive line to gel and get your first starters and your backup in the cohesive unit like we had last year, then I think that is what's going to tell what kind of offense we're going to have.
And then the next big question from an offensive production standpoint, DC, what can Paul Tyson do, or what will Paul Tyson have to do to win the job from the heir apparent that everyone else is given to Bryce Young?
Well, I think number one, he's not as athletic as Bryce Young, so he's not going to win it with his athletic ability. He does have a good arm, but he's not as athletic. So I think he's got to win it with knowing the offense and making the big plays with his arm like Mac Jones did, and being consistent. Lack of turnovers, lack of interceptions. If he can do that, then he might push him. But you know, I keep saying this to everyone. Let's don't sleep on Jalen Milroe either. Just because you pencil Bryce Young in, you know, Jalen Milroe, if you look at his track record and that that he had, you know, I think Paul Tyson is going to have a tough time competing against both of those guys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I had a friend of mine tell me that they were talking to three guys that played with Tua, Jalen, and Mac Jones. And the question was, which one would you take? And that without hesitation, they all said Mac Jones. And they were like, why? And it says because of his understanding of the game. And I think that is Tyson's only chance to beat those guys out. You can go out to practice Friday, DC, or at any point, which position and or player you're going to be watching?
Well, I want to watch the wide receivers first, and I want to see Javon Baker. I want to see, you know, last year he seemed to be some normal things in practice, but he couldn't get on the field because he had such a great wide receiver. So I want to see him. I want to see Javon Baker really show up. I want to see, you know, what he brings to the table. I also want to look at on the offensive side of the ball. I want to see the running back. Group of running backs there. You know, I want to see Keelan Robinson. How is he going to react after sitting out this year? That's one thing I want to look at. On the defensive side of the ball, you know, I want to look at the cornerback position and see, you know, where are we going to hit at cornerback? Is Josh Jobe penciled in at one starter? Who's got the other starter? It's going to be Jalen Armour Davis, Ronald Williams. It's going to be Marcus Banks, Brandon Turnage. All those guys I think are going to be battling for those cornerback positions. I think that's going to be a really big battle in the defensive side of the ball.
We hadn't talked about it, but the quarterback of the defense is the Mike Backer. Do one of the newcomers get the job done from last year or this year, or do we see Shane Lee work his way back into that Mike linebacker role?
I don't know. You know, Shane Lee has a chance. I think for some reason he lost a little bit last year in the translation of getting on the field. So, you know, Shane Lee, Christian Harris, Jalen Moody, those three guys, one of those guys are probably going to be the bell cow on that defensive linebacker.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I think, you know, watch this Alabama basketball team.
Awesome. That's DC Capstone Fort Report. Follow at David Cott 50 at David Cott 50, or find them online at the DC Capstone Report, dccapstonereport.com. For the Martin Houston Show, for Joe Gaither, for DC, and for all of the list guesters, followers, and chatters, we say Trust in the Lord always. Lean not your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, with a little less technical difficulties. Thank you, guys, and roll Tide.